Okay, hold on.
Good evening, and welcome to the Positional Sports Talk Show Post, live streaming on Facebook Live and our Positional Sports YouTube channel. We are a sports talk show made for the fans, from the perspective of fans, brought to you by lifelong sports fans. We will provide our opinions and positions on the latest topics in sports. My name is Big Reg, and I'm joined this evening by my partners in crime. How you doing this evening, Professor J?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Praise the Lord. Let's have an awesome show, fellas.
Right on.
All right. What's going on, Johnny? Johnny in the building.
Doing excellent, feeling good, excited to do this show. Mad I missed last week, but business happens, ready to get it going.
No problem. We missed you, but we made the thing happen. We had you in our spirits. We got
Absolutely.
Ed in the building. How you feeling, Ed?
Well rested. Good to see everybody this evening. Welcome to our show. Let's get it.
Let's get it. We got J3 in the building. What's going on, J3?
You know what's up, fellas? How y'all doing? Let's get it in.
Yeah, boy, yeah.
And this evening, we got a special guest this evening. Let me introduce everyone to Mr. Miles Kelly. Miles Kelly is a rising senior at Georgetown Prep. And we brought Miles on to talk a little bit about what's going on, going back to school. And also, Miles is also a football player for Georgetown Prep, and get his thoughts and opinions about what's going on with the football season. So welcome to the show, Miles. How you doing this evening?
Thank you. I'm doing good.
And for all transparency, I got to let everybody know, not only is Miles close personal friend, Miles is my godson, so I'm a little favorable. So when we talk to Miles, I'm going to let the other fellas question him, so, make sure we get the good stuff in.
Oh, yeah.
So this evening, we will discuss college football conference plans and the Pac-12 Players Coalition. They throwing a wrinkle in this college football scheme. We're also going to discuss Major League Baseball's continued outbreak issues. The NFL sees more players opt out while coaches and players continue to test positive. The NBA opening weekend, plus other topics that caught our eye, and of course, our final post of the evening. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Post on the Positional Sports Talk channel. All right, Miles. So, it's August. I know you've been working out, doing some things, getting ready for school. How are you feeling about this upcoming school year, partner?
I'm really feeling it's not looking too good for in-person learning. I mean, our school they've put in measures to try and prevent the spread while we attend school. They've put out a plan for us to return in the fall. And recently, Montgomery County put out a statement saying that that private schools in the county can't do in-person learning until October 1st. And that's a big issue. And now there are some private schools in the county that are trying to sue the county for not letting them open. So
Wow.
they're really trying to have the school year up and running.
So I got a quick question for you, Miles. With that being said, how do you personally feel about that? Would you rather go to school, or would you rather stay at home and learn from afar?
I mean, going to school, it's a completely different learning experience than just staying at home. But for the safety of the students and to try and prevent the spread, I don't think it's safe, not necessarily for the students, but for the parents or for the grandparents that the kids could be visiting. And all it takes is just one kid, and you have to clean every building. I mean, they've probably been to every building in the school. We have about 5 buildings, and there's 3 buildings for learning. So it just takes one kid.
Hey,
Do you
Miles, can
have
I ask you a question?
confidence?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John. Go ahead, Professor.
Do you have confidence in the leadership, not only of your school, but also in the county to have your best interests at heart?
I feel like the county is doing a good job. They're not actually, or Montgomery County Public Schools, they're not doing in-person learning. They said until January come by next year, and they still don't know if they're going to do in-person learning. But when it comes to my school, I think that it is possible that we can create a safe environment, and I think they really are trying to create a safe environment. At prep, really, everybody loves everyone. It's like a second family, really. And I do think they have our best interests, and I think it's possible, but just the likelihood of it succeeding, I think, is very slim.
So, Miles, you mentioned when you first started speaking that the plan was no in person until I believe it's October now. But yet you're also an athlete, a student athlete. So, how do you feel about having online learning potentially this whole semester, yet trying to play a football game? So how do you feel? Would you feel safe, or do you feel comfortable with, although you're not going to be potentially physically in a classroom? How do you feel about practicing and being on the field? If it's not safe enough to go to class, how would you feel? Do you feel it's safe enough to actually participate in your sport?
Well, I feel like football for us is really going to depend on what the school does in terms of going back. And I feel like trying to manage the kids during football, it would be a little bit easier than trying to manage the kids who are all going to school just because it's a smaller group of people. But I feel like the likelihood of one of those kids, going out to one of their friends' house who have been somewhere, I just don't think it's safe to play a season in the fall coming up. I don't feel comfortable with it, and especially if I'm not going to school, I wouldn't feel comfortable with playing football.
Good answer. Good answer.
Now, you just mentioned in the fall. What are they telling you about possibilities of football this year?
So the IAC, that's the division that Georgetown Prep is in for football. The IAC, they recently put out a statement saying that they were not going to play any fall games until post-January come. So no sports are going to be played until after January. So that just ended all of the hopes of having a fall season right there. And a thing that I saw that some schools and counties were doing, they were going to play all 3 seasons in the spring, and they would have a smaller spring season, only playing conference games, and they would have like 6-week segments for all of the different sports, and so that way they can try and get some games in.
As a senior, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel like it's better than nothing. I mean, potentially, this is my last year for playing football, and I feel like it's important to a lot of kids seeing that, or just seeing how heartbroken all the kids were during this spring sport too. They didn't get to play. I feel like it would be a pretty big missed opportunity.
Makes sense.
So looking ahead at your college career, Miles, how do you see things panning out, let's say post-COVID?
I mean, I feel like once COVID stabilizes, maybe everyone has the vaccine post-college. I mean, they're going to have to still implement some type of protection, or still have some type of mask or something so that they can play. I mean, I feel like after this, not just sports, but the whole world is gonna change on how they do things and how they sanitize different things and just general hygiene.
Good answer.
Excellent.
Hey, Miles, what's the temperature as far as the people and your friends that you come into contact with? What's the temperature as far as your peers feeling comfortable as far as attending class, as far as like I mentioned before, participating in sports? Is it? And I know you gave me your answer as far as how you personally feel, but without naming any names, what do you think the general consensus is as far as whether you should actually be in class, whether this virus is real? Like what is the take as far as your contemporaries? Like what are people saying in your age group and the people that you talk to on a regular basis?
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of people I've talked to, a good portion of them have already had the virus. They've already had the virus and they've gone through it. A lot of my friends are going to the beaches as well. Like I know, like 5 friends that are going to the beach. Yeah.
Joe, what's up with your kid, man?
Stay over there, homie. Stay over there.
But yeah, I mean, it's not like they don't realize that it's real, but it's just that I guess they feel like it's not really gonna have as big of an effect on them, and as it would with someone who is at risk for dying from COVID.
Miles, you wasn't over here at that pool party the other day, were you?
No.
Just checking, man.
I hope not.
Yes, he was.
Look, he was directed to traffic.
Miles was there. Miles was there. How many times have you been to the beach, Miles?
0. I haven't
Good
really
answer.
traveled
Good
anywhere.
Good news.
Only places I've been is Virginia and Maryland, and also DC. So,
now, had they decided to open the schools, would you feel comfortable around your peers at school? Even though a lot of them have been through Corona, do you trust the guys that you may be around day in, day out in your age range?
It's not that I don't trust them, but it's just that it's so unpredictable and that anybody can just run into someone that has the virus. I mean, you can be shopping and it's easy to be within 3 feet of someone while you're shopping. I mean, no one's really, like saying 6 feet to everyone that they pass. You're going to be within 6 feet of people. And I just feel like they're not going to have an intention to, just go out and be reckless. But it's the risk you take going back to school that.
So if you could play, would you play right now? Considering all that?
I mean, if I would have to hear like a plan before I would even consider playing, I would, because my dad is at risk for dying from COVID, so I have to keep that in mind.
It's a contact sport. It's a contact sport, Miles. So you do realize you playing a contact sport. So if you on the field, 9 times out of 10, even though we hope that no one would actually have it that have been tested and still would jump on the field, but it's a contact sport. And if you're out on the field, you're susceptible to getting exposed to it. So yeah, the chances of you getting would be a lot higher if you were on the field than if you didn't go to the game at all. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely on that. But if some chance, I would be open to hearing anything, just because I would rather have a season instead of no season. But just by some chance, if, a miracle happens and it's a perfect plan, I would definitely be open to it. But
understand, that's understandable. That's truly understandable in your situation.
I got a quick question for you, Miles. Are you a gamer? Are you in the esports?
I'm not necessarily in the esports, but I do play lots of video games. Yeah.
the way I'm going with this is the fact that since online learning is going so virtual, you have a lot of athletes who are spending more time in esports and really playing those different types of games, because as you know, there's a lot of money in that area now as well. Would you ever consider taking it off the field and onto the gaming console?
I would definitely consider that. I mean, like having a little high school league, I feel like a lot of the players who do play sports, they're not. They might call themselves gamers, but you know that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be super good at the game. I mean, there's a lot of people who think that they're good, and then there's people who play all the time. You know,
like in
and
real
they don't
life.
come out the house. Like it's real life, and they don't come outside. And I know personally because I've played some of my teammates. There's one kid that can beat me at Madden in my school, in my entire school, and so the rest of the kids are.
Challenge.
I mean, it's just true.
All right.
Hey,
All right.
Miles.
Oh, go ahead, Ed.
I got one more question, and then I promise this is the last question. So, Miles, what type of input or has your parents given you the power to make the decision whether or not you would actually be physically in class or physically on a football field? Should your school give the green light for the go ahead? I mean, what type of feedback has your parents provided? I mean, as a parent, I'm sure they're apprehensive, but have they given you the ability to make that decision on your own?
Me and my dad, we haven't really talked about it deeply yet. I mean, he said that we're gonna have to see just when the school year comes closer. I mean, we really haven't gotten a lot of information about what's going on yet. And there's a lot of confusion up in the air, not just about the school, but about sports as well. We have a limited amount of information that we've been given. And so it's just going to depend on the time September comes and when our school is going to allegedly open up.
Okay.
The word on the street, Miles, is that you're going pre-med and you really don't have much of a decision in it. That's the word on the street. It be like that sometimes, Miles. It's okay.
Yeah, that's probably true right now.
Not a problem.
One last question for you, Miles, and then of course you're more than happy to stick around and listen to us talk about the other things. But just for you, being that this is your last year, your senior year, do you feel any disappointment or regret about the way this whole COVID-19 situation is affecting your last year of high school?
I don't necessarily feel regret. I mean, I feel like this was just something that's out of anyone's control, really. I mean, it's obviously been things that we could have done or just things that we could have done better as a country. And
Trump.
Yeah, but
bless you, man.
But I mean, it's a little disappointing that I'm not going to play a full season. But I feel like having COVID or through this going through this pandemic, I feel like it's just giving a lot of people. It's just giving a lot of people time to just slow down and kind of, I guess, relax more and just spend more time with their families and whatnot. So I don't have any regrets about the season coming up or anything like that.
Wow. Good answer. Good answer.
All right, partner. Well, of course, you know I appreciate you jumping on. And again, if you want to hang out and talk sports with us,
go ahead and stay, man. Go ahead and stay.
Just come on and hang out.
I will. I'll stay.
All right. So let's talk college football, fellas. We already knew that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten had already announced that they were going to do conference-only games, which started throwing the wrinkle into the other conferences. I mean, pretty much almost everybody else has shut down, said it's not worth us playing football this year, but we were still worried about what the Big Five were going to do. The ACC came out and announced that they were going to have an 11-game season. They were going to do 10 conference games, and then they were going to leave one non-conference game available for in-state conference games. And what they were really doing was trying to leave open the ability for them to play some of those traditional ACC, SEC state rivalries, Florida against Florida State and Miami, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina. They also allowed Notre Dame to increase the number of games that they want to play in the ACC. They were already scheduled to play 6 ACC teams, and Notre Dame is an ACC member in every other sport except for football, which they're still one of the few independents. But they added Notre Dame. They allowed them to add 4 more games, and Notre Dame can actually win the ACC title this year. Not that they're going to beat Clemson, but they got a shot at it.
Never know. Never know. Never know.
It's all about
but
the
then
dollar,
the big boy came in, the SEC said, nah, we ain't trying to hear that, in-state game. We just playing 10 games this year, SEC only, and we going to crown the SEC champ. We'll care what ACC want to do.
Gangster.
And then yesterday, the Big 12 announced that they were going to play a 10-game season. Now, the Big 12, which is ironic, only has 10 teams. So they can only have 9 conference games. So they have 1 non-conference game. So all the Power 5 conferences are straight ahead, full steam ahead. We playing football. And then this little old group out off the West Coast, the Pac-12 Players Coalition, popped up on the scene. And if you haven't read the demands of the Pac-12 Players Coalition, I would highly suggest anyone listening to check out. I think it's on the Players Tribune. They posted their statement and demands over the weekend, and we're not talking about a few players. They've got a minimum of 200 players. I've heard up to 400 Pac-12 football players have signed on to this coalition. They're doing it very smart, in my opinion. They're not putting out who signed up on the coalition so that they can eliminate individuals being attacked by their schools and the conferences. Mm-hmm. So before we get into what exactly the coalition's asked for, what you guys think about, the different conferences and what they decide to do as far as playing in the actual coalition itself, getting together and making demands?
I don't blame them. I do not blame any individual who feels as though that they wanted to sign on with that Pac-12 coalition. I don't blame them at all.
Me neither. I feel it's their right. They have a right to raise their voices and their concerns, just like Miles just said, albeit on the high school level. College players have a right to raise their voices as well, because this coronavirus affects us all. And it's definitely something that we need to really support them on.
Agreed.
Professional athletes have been talking about doing this for years. They felt used when they were in college. So it's not a surprise that it's happened. I'm actually surprised that it took so long.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, for the first part of your question, as far as these conferences getting together and these Power 5 conferences getting together and determining schedules and what have you, as far as that's concerned, I think it's gross negligence, because until you come down with a complete guideline as far as safety protocol, games are secondary. So that's that. As far as the Pac-10 coalition, I congratulate all those student athletes, except the University of Colorado. They were the lone Pac-12 team to not have any players participate in this. But I think it's long overdue. I've been screaming at the top of my lungs for months, if not years, that these athletes, particularly these Power 5 conference athletes, they need to come up with some kind of representation to voice their needs and concerns, and to make sure that they're being looked after. when you have these the NCAA, which are the biggest gangsters, probably one of the biggest gangster organizations in America. They're basically doing what they want with no repercussions whatsoever. And if you think about it, their power is even being questioned right now.
Oh yeah, they're being put on notice
by the same, but not only by the athletes, but by the people that they're seemingly in bed with, these presidents and these athletic directors at these Power 5 schools. So I applaud the Pac-12 for being out front in this. And remember, this has been attempted before because basically all this is representation, or it's a union, it's an organizing labor, however you want to talk, frame it. Northwestern, they've tried, this has been done in the past. Northwestern tried to do this a few years ago, and unfortunately they failed. But again, I'm glad that the Pac-12 is at least trying to do something.
Yeah, you said something key there, Ed. The players, they must be protected. I mean, when you look at what's going on at Washington State with Nick Rolovich and what he's doing to his player, that voiced his opinion and his concern over his own health as well as his teammates, being told to clear out his locker. I mean, we got to stop this bully behavior by a lot of these head coaches who only are thinking about their own selves and their own bottom line. So, yeah, they definitely need to be protected. And I think that wave is coming.
But you say something, Professor J.
Go ahead, Ed.
But you say something, Professor J, as far as it's the head coach. But never forget, the head coach is just, he's basically a middleman. You have to go all the way up to the NCAA president, Emmart, and his over $3 million salary, and him trying to do everything within his power to fight to hold that. I mean, give you an example. When the whole pay for play came out, it's been ongoing for years, but recently it's really come to a head as far as the NIL is concerned, name, image, and likeness. The NCAA came up with this document. They ran to Congress, and they presented this document to Congress. And what it basically is, it's totally inadequate as far as player compensation, and they're trying to they want Congress to implement a universal rule that supersedes individual states, so that they can still continue the bully tactics and the exploitation of these athletes. So that's the problem right there. It starts at the top. It's the NCAA unchecked power.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You brought up Northwestern, and Northwestern is interesting. One, it was just a group of players on one school. And even though Northwestern is in the Big Ten, which is a Power 5 conference, Northwestern football isn't substantial, so they kind of blew them off. I think the way they did this was very, very smart. They've got multiple athletes from multiple schools. The schools don't know exactly who they are. I think only a handful of them have actually put their names out there. One of them was an All-American cornerback, I think, from Washington. But the schools just know it's a bunch of players, and that those players are continually talking to other players. So they don't know if it's going to affect one team, two teams, 11 out of the Pac-12. So that puts a little extra pressure. And based on what they're asking for, they're not asking to be unionized. So they could be an association, but they want bargaining power based on their association, because union gets into the legal aspect. Are they employees or are they student athletes? And they're not trying to run down that rabbit hole, because that's a long legal battle. We don't care about that. Because of this coronavirus, they've said a lot of these schools need the football revenue to help keep these schools open, or they'll have to have massive cutbacks. So they're saying, okay, you need us, so we're going to put out what our demands are. And they've demanded that the Pac-12, the commissioner, the ADs, and all of the administrators come to the table and negotiate with them in good faith, and they've said they're not doing any fall camp, and if need be, they won't play football at all this year if they don't come negotiate in good faith. So let me just tell you some of the things that they're talking about. First, as far as, because the whole emphasis of this is social injustice, how they're using primarily the black athletes, taking them out of their communities, using them, making millions and billions of dollars for these institutions and not putting back into their communities. But as far as health and safety, COVID, the ability to opt out, keep your scholarship, but not only keep your scholarship, keep your placement on the team. So you don't have coaches like the new coach of Washington State threatening you that if you join this coalition, you may have problems when you come back the following year.
That's terrible.
They also
that sound like the
want to prohibit, or for those people who've actually signed, void the COVID-19 liability waiver agreements. A lot of people don't know, some of these colleges have had these college students sign these waiver agreements, and when they ask if I can get somebody to go over these and look at them for my protection, they're telling them no. They also want a third party put in charge of the health and safety standards. So not only they can get together and agree on what they are, but they want a third party to observe and monitor to make sure that each university is doing what they're supposed to do. Because that's the thing. You can put all the standards in the world, and we'll talk about this when we get to baseball. You can have a 113-page, 200-page book, but if the coaches and the ADs aren't enforcing those rules, it doesn't matter. Sports protection. They're not only looking out for themselves. They're asking the Pac-12 for all the universities to reinstate all the programs that they just canceled because of revenue concerns because of COVID-19. They're saying these coaches are making multi-million dollars a year. The ADs are making millions of dollars a year. Y'all should voluntarily reduce your pay to help finance these other sports that people are losing their scholarships from. Stop building these $100 million practice facilities that each school has to play the war games with other schools back and forth, back and forth. Oh, Oregon's got the best one, so we got to build a new one. Oh, no, now they got the best one, so we got to redo ours. I mean, they're saying stop it. They're also saying use some of them endowment funds that you have that, in the case of Stanford, has over 70-something billion dollars in their endowment fund. Use some of that to finance some of these sports leagues, teams that you're cutting while COVID is going on. So, I mean, these players are serious, and that's just some of them. I won't bore you with all of it. They go into economic.
No, that's good. That's good
stuff. They want for racial injustice. They want 2% of gross revenues that the conference raise to go to minority students, low-income minority students, black athletes, and special programs that they want. So, I mean, it's not just about COVID. It's just not just about the football team. They're looking out for all the athletes that come in, especially the minority athletes that come in. So I'm proud of them.
Absolutely.
Hey, Big Reg.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Big Reg, you mentioned they don't want to go down the rabbit hole and have a legal battle. But if you sit back and really think about it, it's the only way they're going to meet any of these demands or get anything close to what they are asking for. It's going to take hundreds of lawyers, because the NCAA and these colleges, they're not going to stop They're not going to stop building these facilities as you mentioned. They're definitely not going to take pay cuts.
Nope.
They're not going to give up power. No one has ever given up power voluntarily.
Nah, because they want their money. It's greed.
Right. And so, I applaud them for asking for all these things, but it's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a multi-year fight unless these
You
athletes
don't
are
play.
really serious, and not only 2020, because it's kind of easy right now to be a little controversial, a little demanding in the environment that COVID has created. But let's see what 2021 brings. Let's see what 2022 brings. That's the true test. If these athletes really are about that smoke, if they really about making a change, boycott for a year or two. Not just right now when it's easy to speak. It's easy to speak up on, you support, social justice. It's easy to support, kneeling. It's easy to support, putting slogans on the courts or the fields or the back of your jerseys. But let's see what happens when all those obstacles are not there. Let's see how you support and how you conduct yourself moving forward. If you really want to put money back into our communities or their communities, whatever socioeconomic background they're from, boycott the colleges. Don't go. There's plenty of colleges that you could choose, and now that you have social media,
HBCUs.
right? Now that you have social media, now that you have unlimited amount of cable channels, you do not have to go to one of these big time schools to be seen.
Right.
So say it with your chest, Ed. Say it with your chest. I hear you, bro. Say it with your chest. Say it on.
All I'm saying, they're not giving up this money easy. They're not going to just fold and say, "Okay, you can have this." It's not going to happen like that, in my opinion.
Right. And that's what leads us back to the show we had maybe a month ago, where we start pulling all of our talent and flood it into the HBCUs, because like you said, that money trail will follow the player athletes, the student athletes to those schools, and all the notoriety, the television money, the social media success, all of that stuff will come with it. So we really need to be diligent about telling our children, and in some cases grandchildren, that they need to consider these HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think. Obviously they're Pac-12 students. Some of these students are Stanford football players. We not talking about. They're not pie in the sky. They don't think they're gonna get everything, but I think what they're doing is laying the groundwork to start establishing movement towards all of those different things. And maybe this year they only get a couple of things, but then they go hard again next year. And again, they said they want negotiation in real good faith. So if you come explain to them or work with them, they're willing to work with you. But it won't take legal action. It'll take them saying we are not rendering our services this year to make a dent. And here's the kicker. Little known, the SEC football players, their leadership group demanded a meeting with the SEC AD, commissioner, and administrators. So they had a conference call Sunday night, and they started asking some of these same questions. And based on the reports that I saw, they weren't happy with the answers they were getting, especially about the COVID stuff. So the SEC players have reached out to the Pac-12 coalition. If you get multiple conferences, players come together as a big organization, then things will really change.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine the SEC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12 players come together, and you're talking about 1,000 players that say we're not playing, and some of them the top players in the country. They'll figure some stuff out then.
That's right.
I wonder if they
Big
can
Reg, I
maintain
think we can say we heard it here first. Heard it here first. Go ahead, Johnny. My fault.
I was just saying, I wonder if they can maintain the energy. These are college athletes. So you got 200 to 400 that signed. How many of those are actually going to be around in the next 3-4 years? And are the kids that's coming behind them at those universities, are they going to maintain the same outlook and approach the situation with as much vigor as the initial individuals who put this together? That would be my concern. I like all of it. They definitely deserve to demand all of these things. But this is predicated on individuals making sure they maintain that same type of energy right now in 2020 and 2026 through 2030. And that's going to be your issue. A lot of the stars who stand to make money off their likeness and their name and their image, they're probably not going to be in school more than a year or two anyway. So you probably had more than half the guys who signed up on this who are probably not starters. Coach probably wouldn't matter if you left him and I can go find another third string tight end. Can you need to be effective? I hate to sound nasty, but you know, it's kind of where my mind goes. Because it's not like these professional athletes who have the opportunity to fight it for 10, 15 years. A lot of the athletes that have said something about it, they haven't did anything else other than say something. They didn't help put any of these things together. Even back to when Ed mentioned when Northwestern tried a similar tactic. You didn't see many professional athletes or old individuals that went to Northwestern helping them out, lawyers or doing things of that nature that would be necessary. So it's hard for me to see this movement, as much as it's needed. It's kind of difficult for, at least for me, to see this continue in this manner.
That's the bigger issue right there, Johnny, because shouldn't the NCAA have been the ones to be the organization to keep the best interest at heart? So there must be something that needs to be done, a larger organization, a collective that actually does that so that that movement can keep going no matter who's on the teams or colleges.
Yeah, two things real quick. One, the guy who was the lead person at Northwestern behind trying to unionize them, he's actually helping the Pac-12 Player Coalition.
That's good to know.
So he's graduated, gone on, and so he's involved helping them out. The second thing is, Miles, do you think athletes like yourself that are still in high school would keep the energy to continue this fight going into college?
I don't feel like they would be. I mean, some of these kids, they're relying on that sports scholarship to get into that school and actually go to that school. And for some people, that's just not something that they can just throw out the window. You know, I mean, it's a free education for those people. So I think it's not going to continue with the next generation of college students coming in.
It's such a quick turnover ratio. It's hard to ask the next man to have the outlook that you had. It's tough, and every situation is different. So I agree with Miles. It's hard. Now,
especially when you want it done.
Especially when you want it done.
Yep.
I'm not thinking about anything. I'm standing to get paid already. Look at Zion Williamson with the situation he got going on right now. Now his name is running through the mud just a touch with what happened at Duke. So, you know, the big boys are going to get offered cash, period. It may not be money from the NCAA, but somebody paid them.
All right. Well, we will see how that progresses and also see if the college football season even happens, because you've got the Pac-12, the SEC on schedule to start until the end of September 26th, I believe. The Big Ten and ACC, I think, are scheduled to start end of August, early September. So we'll see. Let's move on to the next subject. Major League Baseball. Ed, I know you did some research on this. Tell us what's going on with Major League Baseball and all these outbreaks.
Well, basically what's going on is that MLB's 113-page safety protocol pamphlet is crumbling. I mean, that's what's happening. And the leader of Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, is proven to be not qualified to perform his job, showing no leadership skills whatsoever. So basically, what's going on is that the Miami Marlins have kicked it off, where they recently suffered over 17 of their players, staff combined came down with COVID, which basically started a chain reaction of cancellations or / postponements of these games. So, and it's affected multiple franchises. And as a result, Manfred, the commissioner, came out and boldly stated or threatened the union boss, Tony Clark, Major League Baseball union boss. He threatened and said, if you don't, you got to get your players under control and make sure that they're following safety guidelines. So that was one day. Within 2 days, he came back, the commissioner, and announced that he's not a quitter and that the players have to do better. Now, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but basically he transferred all blame on the players instead of having an actual guideline or safety protocol in place that would handle outbreaks. Because once they decided, Major League Baseball and the union, once they decided that they weren't going to quarantine, which the players didn't want, and then the Major League Baseball owners, they didn't want to quarantine either because they wanted their sponsorship money from having games in their particular stadium. So they didn't want to consolidate all this money and what have you in the 1 or 2 stadiums or 3 or 4, how many ever it would have took to create a bubble. And so now you have this situation where they knew outbreaks were going to come, but they have no way to control or no clear-cut way to handle these outbreaks. And if you have a postponement of a game, what they have come up with is they're going to start having double headers, but they're only going to be 7-inning double headers. But eventually, time is going to run out. You only have 9 weeks to the season. I guess we're down to 7 weeks now, maybe 7.5 weeks now. So it's a mess. It's a mess, and we clearly understand why now. Canada was like, after reading that 113-page document, they was like, we don't want any part of this. This is your mess. You clean it up, but we're going to do just fine without baseball this year.
And so you mentioned lack of leadership in the NBA. I mean, the Major Baseball League. But doesn't that sound familiar in the world? In our country, anyway.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying, and that's why I mentioned Canada, because Canada saw, and I'm not going to turn this into a political debate, but Canada obviously read through the protocols, the 113-page document, and they determined that it didn't go far enough, or it wasn't bulletproof enough, or no clear plan was in place to actually control the spread of this disease or virus. I'm sorry. So that's where we are as far as that's concerned. And now it's been, not only is the Miami Marlins been affected, now you're on to the next team, which the most recent team was the St. Louis Cardinals. So it's like a ripple effect. It's not, it's no clear understanding on, how you control it. The only thing that the commissioner and also the baseball owners and management, Derek Jeter being one of them, who's in control of the Miami Marlins, right? They're saying they're having lapses of judgment. These players are not doing what they needed to do off the field, etc. And so I'm wondering if they're going to end up it's coming to a point where, because they're steadfastly against canceling the season, regardless of how many outbreaks they have, I wonder if it's going to come to a point where they're going to start fining these players or suspending these players.
That's what the NFL trying to do.
That the NFL has already said that's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. So what you're telling me is they shifting blame, they're not taking ownership, and they still want the players to play.
Sound
K3, yeah. So K3 and Ed. So that's what's happening here. the blame is now being passed back and forth. And you got to remember that way back early on in spring training, when things started going around and everybody wanted a bubble for baseball, but the players were starkly against it. Now the owners are kind of shaking their fingers at them now, saying, yeah, when we wanted to have you in 2 locations and create a bubble atmosphere, we could kind of control some of the things that are going on with you guys, but you didn't want that. So now that we let you do what you wanted to do, now that traveling teams are being blamed and people getting sick and all that stuff, since y'all rejected a bubble, now we're going to start enforcing some more things on you because we want to make our money. Let's make that clear. But since you didn't want to do what we wanted to do in the beginning, these are the consequences of it. And we seeing that now. Oh, let me interject this. Sorry, y'all. I ain't trying to derail the show. But as soon as I heard this morning that Manfred was going to base the playoff run on percentages, I was like, I told the fellas that last week that it's not going to be about how many games played, win and losses. It's going to be about that winning percentage. And that's what he's going to implement.
But I'm a little confused. Hold on, Ed. I'm a little confused. Who is actually managing the team, or who is actually leading the team? Is it the players leading the team, or is it the coaches and the managers leading the team? Help me understand. I'm just a little confused.
And that's a good question, J3, because that goes back to what Professor J was talking about, where it goes back in the spring. When the players was like, no, we don't want no freaking bubble. We don't want to be confined for 4 months or however long a baseball season is in one particular spot. But Manfred has power to make a decision, an executive decision. Just like he implemented a 60-game season. The players didn't want that. He was like, this is what's going to go on. We're going to have a season. It's going to be 60 games. Deal with it. And so he had the power to say, you know what? I don't care, owners, because now I'll never forget, he's in a particular situation, a peculiar situation, because even though he's the commissioner and he ultimately has the power and control and the final say, he's an employee of the owner. So never forget that. Just like with any other commissioner, Roger Goodell, whoever you want to talk, Gary Bettman in the NHL, whoever you want to bring up, ultimately the commissioner, even though he's the figurehead and he's out front and he takes all the bullets, he works for the owners. So he can't really get in front of the microphone, or he can't even really implement a 60-game season without the owners' consent and signing off on it. So getting back to it, the owners are placing the blame on the players, saying, yeah, you guys need to be more diligent and be more careful, wearing masks, social distancing, not going to Magic City, etc. But ultimately, it's the owners. They're the ones responsible for this whole thing. They are the bosses. The commissioner is the boss. So don't put blame on the labor, even though the labor and let's look. You got to get it out your mind. I know this labor is a different type labor pool that we're used to talking about when it comes to like a job. You know, the average salary is for whatever, how many millions, but you can't think of it like that, because nevertheless, they're still labor. They work for somebody. They're not in charge. They're not making what you say, J3. They're not making the rules. The owners are making the rules, and the players are just following them.
Wow. You saying something, Big Reg?
Is he on mute?
He is saying something.
He must be. Are you on mute, Big Reg? I faintly hear you.
I can't hear.
There's something happening with his mic, yeah.
Okay, so I have a question, fellas. As far as Major League Baseball, when you have all these we're into a 9-week season, 60 games. We've already had multiple postponements. How will history judge this season? Or as fans, how will you individually judge this season? Will you say this season is a legitimate season? Or will you say this is, if any season should have an asterisk, this is the season? Like how would you're talking about, you heard that they're going to go by percentages now. Like how will you guys judge this season? Will you judge it as legitimate or not so much?
The
you definitely
gonna
have
an asterisk.
Yeah, you definitely go ahead an asterisk without a doubt.
Yeah.
You didn't play a whole season. You got to get an
It's
asterisk.
a big if.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big if they finish the season. But certainly if they do, think about how many people would have gotten sick. Think of the percentage thing they go into, games missed, how many teams are going to be affected. You're not really getting that competitive balance that we're used to having. And then if games get shortened or the season is shortened even more than it already is, I mean, can a champion really, if it's the Nats, I'm going to still be like, go Nats.
Yeah.
But can a champion really act like they accomplished a legitimate championship in this environment? I say no.
Yeah, I completely agree because you have players that are not playing. You have players who are getting sick. And, without that, you really never know what would have happened if they had been playing. So, it's just not the same as a full season. As a full 180-game season, 60 game?
162.
Yeah, so 162 games and you're playing 60 games?
Less now.
Right.
Did we get Big Reg back?
Yeah,
I think I'm back. What was interesting to me, I don't know if y'all caught it, they had to put the Golden Boy out there to kind of save face for the Marlins. Did y'all see that Jeter did the tour, giving interviews, talking about don't blame my players. My players weren't out there just being reckless. Only a few of them went out, and they went out to get something to eat and all that. So even with them shifting blame, it was nice to see Jeter come out and kind of have his players back. So we will see. Again,
he's an owner.
The plan has holes. I don't think they're going to get this season finished. So we'll see. Whatever happens, however they crown a champion, if they get that far, it's got to have an asterisk to it.
Not impressed with the tap dance.
Right.
Speaking of asterisks, the NFL, I think the last thing that I saw, the number was up to almost 50 players had already opted out. They've got till Thursday now to decide if they're going to opt out or play. But as we've been saying for months, if baseball is having problems keeping players safe, how in the hell are you going to play football and keep people safe? How you even going to be in the locker rooms to keep people safe?
It's a contact sport. As soon as you get on the field, you suspect. Period.
We okay?
Yeah, we good. We good.
Yeah, you zoomed in and out. What happened?
Not sure. Where Big Reg? I don't see Big Reg or Miles.
I see everyone.
Everybody's up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
So jumping in on that point, I don't believe you're going to be able to keep a roster of, I believe it's 80 in training camp. It's upwards of 80 people, I believe, this year. I don't see how you can possibly begin keeping that amount of players safe. We've already had multiple outbreaks. We've had Stafford in Detroit, Minshew in Jacksonville. We had the head coach of Philly come down with COVID, and we haven't. Yeah, and we haven't even got cranked up yet. I don't even think they're actually making physical contact with one another yet. So, there's not going to be a preseason, but I think that's okay. We don't need a preseason anyway. I don't see how it can be. I don't see how it's going to be viable to keep people safe. And we already saw last week where the head of infectious disease for the Minnesota Vikings came down with COVID. Regardless of how he came down with it, he still came down with it. I don't see this being. It's not going to work.
Yeah. The voices of the McCourty brothers loom really large right now because they were two of the ones that spoke up about this from the beginning. As the New England Patriots were rising to their 8 players, opting out of this particular season. And I think what's telling is that you know, the NFLPA and the NFL really didn't have a solid agreement until yesterday, Monday, which was yesterday. And then what the NFL promptly did was they moved up the date as the last day for opting out, which is going to be Thursday now. It was Wednesday at first, but then it's Thursday. But it should have been next Monday because in the agreement, it was supposed to be 7 days after the signing of the agreement. So there's the NFL being the bully that it is once again, pushing on the players. So like you say, you have several players around the league who are now starting to fill up this COVID list with over 100 players now. And it doesn't matter if they actually tested positive or they were around people that tested positive or came up with the antibodies in their blood. So that's scary even in itself, because the many players that were practicing together in hot climates such as Florida, which is one of our hot spots, you know, they were asymptomatic, so they didn't think that they had it. But now that they're being tested, their blood is showing evidence of the antibodies in their blood. So now you got all these guys now filling in training camps this week. Many of them could be asymptomatic because we know the problems with the testing. I mean, it's been documented. You could be negative, but really been positive, or positive and really been negative. And that doesn't escape our pro teams either. So we have a lot of that going on. So now you're telling me that we're coming on the cusp of a brand new season. And you think that as more hitting comes, I think August 17th is the date where everybody's going to be putting on pads, and then they'll really be hitting and coming into contact with each other around the league. I mean, I'm expecting for those numbers for that COVID list to start spiking at that point. And then we don't have a bubble in the NFL. So you have players that are still coming and going as they please. Some of them are irresponsible. Some of them are young. And even some of the veterans are doing things that they want to. And then we mentioned New Orleans. New Orleans, actually, I commend the owner down in New Orleans because she actually is being proactive and at least doing something. She took out 4 floors of the Lowe's Hotel in downtown New Orleans so that about 150 of their players and personnel can be sequestered in this area to try to create some form of a bubble for New Orleans. Now, check this, fellas. She tried to buy out the entire hotel so that the players could also bring their families and then be in the same space at once. So it takes away that, oh, I can't see my family for another 3 months type thing. But guess who blocked it? The big bully known as the NFL. They did not want that, saying that there were violations in protocol that wouldn't be met by having all of these players, personnel, and family in one building at one time. So think about what the NFL is doing at that point. So it's not going to go away. Like we said in the beginning, and I think, fellas, we've been at the forefront 3-4 months ago. We agreed with Dr. Fauci. We said the coronavirus is going to dictate. It's the boss as to whether we're going to have sports and whether we're going to continue to have sports. And that hasn't changed.
I agree with you. I mean, we've seen.
So my question to you guys is this. Man, I'm having technical issues on my end. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, I'm gonna be quiet because I still can't see Big Reg and I can't see Miles, so I don't even know if they're talking or not.
Well, I think that what the NFL is doing is probably a little better than Major League Baseball, but we've seen so far in this environment, the only thing that works so far has been bubbles. The NBA created a bubble, which we're going to talk about shortly. The NHL has created their own double bubble up in Canada. You just had Major League Soccer do a bubble in Florida. Women's soccer do a bubble in Florida. So, and of course, we've talked multiple times about the UFC and boxing doing bubbles. If it's not a bubble, and you got people staying in their environments and going home with their family members, and family members have to go shopping and things of that sort, you can't keep people safe because there's too many people that are asymptomatic, don't know they have the virus, bring it home, give it to loved ones, and then that starts the pandemic.
Well, I feel like at the end of the day, all of these organizations, they're gonna do whatever it takes to get their money, and whether that comes at the risk of players is secondary to them making a profit. So
Agreed. Totally agree.
True statement. We've been saying that all year. Mo- Money above all else, which is a shame, which means that the players have to step up for themselves. Because if they don't, it's obvious that most of these leagues won't. The one league that seems like they're looking out for the players, though, is the NBA. We had the NBA kickoff finally this past Thursday. And I mean, what y'all think so far? We've actually got to see some real games. What do y'all think of the bubble environment down in Orlando and how the first weekend went?
Uh, well, I think that when it comes to the players having a voice, I feel like the NBA has been better than most organizations like the NFL or the NCAA, and I feel like the players are able to voice their opinions a little bit better than they would be in those other leagues.
The NBA has definitely done an amazing job thus far addressing some of the social issues, and that can almost take on a whole show of its own. But as far as the basketball product that I've seen on the floor, they look like individuals that stopped playing basketball on March 11, 2020. I'm not even taking these first couple of games serious until the playoffs. There's not much that's going to happen with most of the top four teams in each division as far as playoff seeding goes. But lost my train. Lord have mercy. So I don't expect much to happen with the seeding, any seeding, reseeding issues. I don't expect to see top tier basketball until maybe the playoffs. These next couple of weeks, they'll be warming back up. You only have one to two extra teams on the Eastern Conference that stayed around past the initial eight that's needed for the playoffs. And the Western Conference is a little bit more of a fight for that final eighth and seventh spot. But that's not going to mess with the Clippers, the Lakers, the Rockets, all the guys you expect to see at the end. So right now, I'm not surprised it isn't the greatest basketball. Defense seems to be playing a lot better, a lot quicker, a lot more well operating than offensive side of the basketball. I think that will come after a few more days in real live action. But right now, you're getting exactly what you should expect. Some rusty guys, especially from your older vets. LeBron does not look comfortable in his skin right now. He looks good on defense. He's definitely in tip-top shape. But for a lot of players who are 33, 34, your Chris Pauls and them, it's taking them a little bit more time. Now, your John Morants, your Luka Doncic, they're able to hop on the court like a bunch of 22, 23-year-olds can and play like nothing ever happened. They just picked up. But for these wily vets who's been in the league for a while, they actually need this warm-up period. So I'm actually not expecting to see the stellar type of basketball we were seeing when we was only about 20, 22, 23 games left in the regular season in March. But eventually we will get back to some top-tier basketball.
I think they're doing. I'm going to steal this from my cousin who just chimed in. They're delivering on all fronts. Ronaldo Davis, what's up, cuz? But I actually think they're doing a good job. I don't necessarily like the uniforms. I mean, I understand that it's coming from a good place, but it just looks like European or like like CBA, like minor league basketball, so to speak. Although I know this is the NBA, but the one thing it did pop up in my mind. I think that there's going to be a team because they're sequestered and they don't have to travel and they don't have to have the distractions of going out for wings or pizza or whatever. I think there's going to be some surprises because particularly with maybe like a younger team, I think that it's going to be easier for them to get to focus and not worry about the nightlife so much. And again, all these athletes are supreme. I mean, all these players are supreme athletes. They usually were the best of the best as far as wherever they came from. But I just have a feeling that there's going to be a surprise team or two, or maybe three, or how many, that's going to come up and surprise some of these favorites, so to speak. I just think that's going to happen. And I was watching the game just today, and that was the thought that just immediately popped in my mind.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. It's interesting. It seems like, I mean, you take Phoenix for example. Not that they're gonna make the playoffs, but Phoenix is 3-0, and they've knocked off two of the top teams already. Exactly, but they just knocked off. They knocked off the Clippers today.
Yeah, okay. Ain't nothing worth getting excited about.
Now understand that LA wrapped up the West last night, so the Clippers are pretty much locked into the number 2 seed, so they're still coasting. But I agree with Ed that you're going to get a team that you weren't expecting that's just going to gel together in this situation and play above what you expect, because there's no travel. They don't have to have the opposing teams, fans that they got to deal with at a game. And all you doing, you balling, you going back to the hotel, chilling out, waking up the next day, having meetings, going back to the hotel, then go ball again.
Sound like you're making excuses for the players.
Hey, can I ask you guys a question? And this is for everybody. What's the point of having home field when everybody has the same field? Or what's the? I'm sorry, it's a court. What's the point of having home court when it's the same court? Now, of course, you might want to try to avoid a certain team or whatnot. But right. is it like a big advantage as far as being the number 1 seed versus the number 2 seed versus the number 3? What's the real advantage there?
Not in this case. I don't think so. I think that is actually a great question. We're all playing right there. They literally all gonna be able to point to that one spot. We're all playing right there. So I agree with you. I don't see it being a big issue. And to the last point that you were talking about, even if Phoenix balls out, you end up in an 8th spot and you're out in the first round. So I mean, it's good experience for you. You knock out the Pelicans. They'll talk about it a little bit on SportsCenter, ESPN. Then they'll be moving right along. It won't hold much weight, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's real cute how they try to put the graphics on the court, pump in some of your home crowd noise and things of that nature. But I think psychologically, they know that they're all playing on the same court. I think it's more for maybe the fan experience, so we could see Capital One Arena on the floor and all that kind of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it really doesn't make that big of a difference. So I mean, I agree with you, Ed and Johnny. I mean, it's just aesthetics at this point.
Well, you still got to deal with seeding, though. Don't forget about seeding. You don't want to play a team in the first round that you can avoid until the second round, or may be able to avoid altogether, because they may end up, if you're the 6th seed compared to the 7th seed, you avoid playing the Lakers and the Clippers.
Yeah, but if you're a baller, you should want to play anybody in any time. Period.
There's not that much shifting going on. I don't think it's going to be that much shifting going on in the next 6 or so games. Phoenix is it is impressive. I can see them making a strong move. But for the Clippers or the Lakers, it doesn't matter who they see at 7 or 8. You're done for.
Right.
Yeah, but you got the Clippers. I think the Clippers are only like a game up on Denver. So the Clippers could theoretically drop out of that 2 spot necessarily. And you got Houston, the OKC, and all them battling for that 6-7 range. Everybody's trying to avoid the Lakers and Clippers at all costs in the first round. You want to play them, but if you don't have to deal with them in the first round, why not let them get beat up by somebody else, and then hopefully you can take a shot at them in the second round?
And I honestly don't think Houston is as scary as a lot of people make them to be. I like the way Houston plays regular season basketball, but playoff basketball, when you slowing down the game and every possession counts, and you got a guy that's going to hold on to the basketball for 22.5 seconds, I don't see how that is going to continue to be efficient when it really, really, really counts. So they're tough, no doubt about it. When you look at them from a regular season standpoint, you're like, oh man, we got those Houston Rockets. But without one of the Chris Paul from last year, and it just doesn't feel the same to me. I don't feel like they're a biggest threat, and an individual are as scared to play them over a 7-game series.
The issue with Houston, since nobody else in the league plays like them, and they're playing small ball, and everybody else has pretty much designed their team to stop the Lakers, stop the Clippers in the West. When you got to match up with somebody that plays something totally different, it causes issues. And I killed him earlier. I got to give some respect to Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has been playing his behind off this last part of the season, and he is being the glue guy while your man 22-second dribble is still doing his thing. Westbrook is going to the lane. Westbrook stopped shooting. He only shooting like 1 or 2 3-pointers a game. He said, I'm stop shooting them. He's taking mid-range shots or taking it to the bucket. He's grabbing rebounds, and he's being the energy bunny in their glue and kicking out. He's playing good ball. It's just one of those teams that could cause you problems.
I agree.
Dallas is one of those teams that could cause you problems because Dallas can score 130 points.
Well,
they
we
can't
know
play any defense.
And they got the best player in the NBA.
Whoa!
Who has the best player in the NBA?
Dallas.
Ooh. You saying the young boy the best player already?
Yep. I said
that's crazy. That's
34, 20, and 12. That's today. 34, 20, and 12. That's today.
That sounds like he being selfish to me. That's exactly what that sounds like with those numbers. Get your team involved.
So when Oscar Robertson
12 assists is being selfish?
Or when Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double a year, are they being selfish?
Oh, absolutely. 30. What did he end up with? 33? What did he have? 33?
34, 20, and 12.
34 triple-doubles. That's terrible.
No, 34 points, 20 rebounds,
12 assists.
Shut her up.
Luka Doncic is almost a total package.
Luka
if he play top tier defense, he's one of the best players I've seen in a while. He can shoot the ball. He definitely knows how to organize an offense. The man is smart beyond his years. I give him top 5 right now. Luka Doncic, he's on his way.
Luka definitely deserves his props, but as the best player in the league right now, I think that that's a bold statement right now. I mean, you have players like Giannis. You still have players like LeBron that you have to consider. And LeBron is going to pop off in the playoffs. I mean, let's just be honest here.
Hey, Miles, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You the GM of the Wizards.
Oh, man.
And you have the first pick. and you got to think about your franchise for the next 10 years. You tell me the player you take, and I think you mentioned. You tell me.
Well, that's a different situation because now you're talking about the future of my franchise.
Well, I
mean, you said the best player now.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, right now. So if we're talking about right now, I'm not thinking about the future. But if I were to take the future into consideration, I would take Giannis over Luka. I mean,
and that's fair. Most people probably will.
That's a fit. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players that are really good and are on that Luka level. Like, there's a lot of players that we associate with the same skill as Luka, and there's also those veterans that we have in the league now that are still super good as well, like LeBron, Anthony Davis, players. I mean, Kawhi. There's a lot of players.
I just see Luka being 20 years old, and he's 20. I mean, he's 20. We've never seen something like. I mean, it's very rare when you see something like this.
Yeah,
I agree.
He just needs the experience.
He comes with a little advantage though. He's been playing pro basketball since he's been 16. It just wasn't here. But no one expected Luka based on his original body type, because he came in the NBA a little pudgy. Luka got in shape, and nobody expected him to drop 30 points a game his second year in the league and still average 8 assists and 10 rebounds. He could be the best player in the league in a couple of years. I wouldn't be shocked.
He also has been given the keys very early in his career. They trusted him a lot. Him coming across 30 points is also, he's putting up some shots, no doubt about it. He's making them, but he's actually putting up some shots. So he's been given a lot of control. He's been given a lot of control over an offense and through an established organization as well, very early in his career.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. Someone posted out there that the bed and Westbrook are workhorses that are soon about to be put out to pasture. They're gonna break down. That's cold. That is cold. So out of the East, is it? I'm still going with my boys, Toronto. I don't know if y'all been watching.
Yeah, man.
Toronto been kicking people's behind.
Yeah.
With their team ball. And quiet as it kept, Nick Nurse might be the best coach in the NBA. He's definitely top 5.
Not bad.
Good. That's a well-oiled machine.
And so they got the length. They got enough people that are 6'7" to 6'10", long enough to put multiple bodies on Giannis.
So you think Toronto will take him in 7?
They have the experience to, no doubt about it.
But isn't it funny how in the span of 2 years, Toronto has gone from the perennial chokers and the disappointment of the Eastern Conference, if not the league, to like a powerhouse. And if you think about it, when everybody was up in arms when Dwayne Casey got fired, and now was it Casey that was in Minnesota, Toronto? Correct me if I'm wrong. Who
won the coach again got fired?
Yeah, but isn't it funny how he went from they went from like, oh, Toronto, this, that, and the third, to now they're legitimately. You're right, Big Reg. They're legitimate. Like, I think I trust them more than I do Milwaukee at this point, even though Milwaukee has probably the second player in the NBA right now.
I think a big issue they had was a mental block, because LeBron had been beating on them so long, they couldn't jump that mental hurdle. So Kawhi didn't have that issue. So Kawhi didn't care about who was in the East, and then LeBron went out West. So now that mental block is gone, they got the heart of the champions, and they determined to prove that it wasn't just Kawhi the reason that they won that championship.
Time will tell. Time will tell. Time will tell. Let's not get too excited. Let's see what happens at the end of the season. Time will tell.
Spicy P.
All right. So, but as far as the look of the game, last thing on the NBA, what did y'all think about the look? How the NBA set up the court?
Truth be told, it threw me off. I didn't like seeing the daggone fake people in the stands, especially when they kept showing certain individuals and they were doing the exact same thing. I mean, if you're gonna have fake individuals, at least have a variety and switch it up. But when you look up in the crowd and you see a particular individual and they doing the exact same thing every time they show it on the screen, it gets a little upsetting to me. That's just my opinion.
I know one thing that I like about the course now is that there's a lot more space for the players to slide out of bounds. I mean, I think that is something they should implement even after this virus has gone through. I mean, you see a lot of players sliding on the court where there would have been people or where there would have been like cameramen and such. And I just think that is just safer for the players. It's something they should implement.
Good point.
Yeah, I think because of this COVID issue, I think they'll eliminate, because each year they start to add more and more seats to courtside seating, to the point where they had so many seats. They actually had seats for high-end patrons literally sitting on the bench, sitting right beside the actual bench. So all that'll go away because of COVID, because they can't be so close. And I agree with you, Miles. Having that extra space on the baselines especially, but even on the sidelines, has been nice. Somebody said LeBron's still crying. It's a whole lot of players out there crying, and the problem is the referees can't hear everything, so they getting teed up a lot too. That's one thing I noticed. Well, we will see. We'll be able to enjoy some NBA, and hopefully the bubble won't burst, because after investing $600+ million, I'm hoping the NBA will keep it under control. And I think once these 8 games get over and they get into the playoffs, I think players will really lock down and get serious about what's coming up. All right, fellas, it's time for some other things that caught our eye. NHL, their season kicked off this weekend. Please check out some hockey if you get a chance. The Washington Capitals lost a tough shootout loss the other day in their seeding brackets. But, I mean, it's good to see hockey back playing. And with their double bubble, they're really doing some things. Also like to say congrats to my man Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton won his 3rd Formula One Grand Prix in a row. That puts him 4 short of the all-time wins record. And he's leading the year-end championship race. And if he wins it again this year, it'll be his 7th year-end championship, which will also tie him for the most ever. To see a black man in Formula One dominating the way he's dominating is very impressive. And he's putting the pressure on Formula One to be more inclusive. So hats off to Lewis Hamilton. Professor J, I know there's something that caught your eye that you wanted to talk about real quick.
He's having problems with Big Reg. He can't hear.
Okay.
Oh, well, he just said something? He called me?
Yeah. I know you had something that caught your eye that you wanted to talk about real quick.
He said, hey, Professor J, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just can't hear Reg. I can hear everybody else.
Did you have something that caught your eye this week?
Oh, yeah, I sure did. So as you guys know, the XFL has been sold, and it's been sold by none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his ex-wife, Danny Garcia. And they got it for a nice price of $15 million. Now, let me just put a little caveat around this. So the XFL, it was doing promising. But what happened is that the XFL wasn't set to turn a profit for about 3 to 5 years. So The Rock would pretty much be starting from scratch. But he has the backing, he has the money. So I think in the next 3 to 5 years, if they play their cards right, they can really put a quality product back on the field. Because, fellas, we were there. We saw the product of the DC Defenders, and we were thoroughly impressed. So I think with his star power and the backing of that firm that he has behind him, I think that in the next few years, we'll see the XFL back on the field. And catch this, they're trying to make it a minor league system or feeder system into the NFL. So stay tuned for that one.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Absolutely.
Anybody else got anything to caught their eye?
Yeah, what caught my eyes? I saw a clip of Roy Jones talking about his expedition fight with Mike Tyson. And I'm telling you, it's the funniest thing. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it, because Roy Jones is sitting here trying to justify how he's going to fight Mike Tyson. But yet the way he's talking is like he's scared of him. And I'm like, if you're scared of him, why are you going in the ring? I mean, I don't understand it, but we'll see what happens. That's what caught my eye.
Because he was scared of him
him in the
before.
ring. Yeah.
Yeah, Roy Jones just trying to build up the pay-per-view. That's all Roy Jones trying to do.
Sad.
All right, last but not least, for you golf fans out there, this week is the first major of the year. The PGA Championship kicks off Thursday. So for all you golf fans out there, please remember to check out. Tiger says he's in shape and the back is feeling good. So maybe we get a Tiger run out there. All right, fellas, it's time for the final post of the evening. Professor, can you hear me?
We can't.
Professor J, you got anything you need to say? Final post?
Yeah, just technical difficulties. But God bless everybody. Thanks for watching the show, and we'll see you next week.
Appreciate it. Johnny, final post.
I would like to say that I feel slightly relieved that everybody else is feeling so. Payback is real. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I
can't hear you. Johnny, you are wrong for that. You are wrong for that. You are wrong for that. Miles, you got anything to say before we leave tonight?
I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come on the show. It was a lot of fun. And
good job.
Go Saints.
Good job.
I appreciate you coming on, partner, and telling us how you feel. It was very enlightening, and definitely we look forward to having views that are skewed a little younger than ours to make sure that what we're thinking is reality, and sometimes it's not. So thank you for your time and appreciate that.
Thank you, Miles.
Ed, what you got for me?
Man, you already said it. I'm looking forward to seeing Tiger at least partial part of this weekend. I'm be on the road moving my daughter down south. So, that's going to consume my sports for the week, for the weekend. So I just want everybody to be safe. Hopefully we'll see each other next week in one piece.
J3.
So my final post is this. I just want to say that for all of y'all doubters who don't think that God doesn't hear prayers, I want y'all to look at this show and realize that he really does. Because one of the things that I always said was if we had a platform where we could actually help youth express what they feel and talk about what they want to talk about as far as what they're doing in their life, this is a platform that we're using. And Miles, you're definitely an example of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Miles.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Smart young man.
Hey, it runs in the family, even the extended family.
Absolutely.
And I'd just like to say, again, thank you, Miles, for coming on. I appreciate you giving us the time. I'd like to thank all the fans again for tuning in, for everybody who's chiming in on the comments. We really appreciate it. You really helped the show out. If there's anything that we can do to make the show better, make it more interesting, please let us know. Shoot us drop us an email or hit us up on our Facebook page or YouTube page or Instagram page. We greatly appreciate any and all help to make this show bigger, better, and grow. All right, fellas, it's time. Again, thank you all for listening and tuning in. We appreciate your time and opportunity to share our positions on sports with you. Please tune in next Tuesday, 7 p.m. We're live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. We'll be here. We look forward to having you here with us. You can also download this show and previous shows on our YouTube channel, Positions on Sports Talk Show, as well as they're uploaded to our Facebook page. You can hit us on Facebook, Instagram, at Position on Sports. Please, if you enjoy the show, tell your friends, family, and social media members, the network. We greatly appreciate it. Please like us, and most importantly, subscribe. It would greatly help us out. This has been the Positional Sports Talk Show. We appreciate you. Have a safe and wonderful week. This is Post. Peace.
Peace.
See ya.
That's it. J3.
Yeah.